I think we're live now. I think.
Are we back?
I think so. I'm not quite sure what happened actually. Are we back now, ladies and gentlemen? Hold on. Let's try again. Yes, no. I think I'm streaming right now. I think I am. I think we are. We're on Restream right now.
Okay. I just saw a lot of messages pop up, so I think we're back.
We're back. We're back, ladies. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Yay! All right, good. We're back. Otherwise you just get a frozen stream. Okay, we're gonna see how long this lasts here. So,
yeah.
Twitch can't stop us, I suppose. So
it's true.
Maybe you said too much. Twitch didn't like that, and they're just like no, that's not allowed. We're sorry.
Way too much, Al. Stop doing that thing.
Too much truth, right? So I like that you mentioned that you have a comfort game on there as well. I think everybody has that comfort game. So like Link to the Past or Link's Awakening. I'm sorry.
Link to the Past, yeah.
Link to the Past, okay.
Has a lot of meaning to me. I actually have a tattoo of Link from Link to the Past on my back.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like not many people know that, but I do have that. And there was this whole thing that when I was a kid, I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than I am. And when Link to the Past came out, we spent an entire summer. We had a binder that we were like taking notes, drawing maps, all kinds of things that we just spent that entire summer like putting the controller between us. Like if he died, then I would take it. If I died, he would take it.
Aww.
And like that was what we did that summer, and we beat it, and it was great. And so like Link to the Past is really a big comfort game for me, and it was just phenomenal that like it's something that really means a lot to me. And I even mentioned it like in the forward of my book that that's one of the things that I very distinctly remember, even though I was a kid. Like I was a tiny kid at that point. I would have been like 4 or something. But I very distinctly remember doing that, and it was a lot of fun. And so I just play Link to the Past a lot. And even Jared's got me into playing the randomizers. Which,
oh man, those are crazy.
Yeah, puts a whole new twist on it.
Right, that's crazy. Yeah, it's like do you like Link to the Past, and do you want chaos? You're like, well, here you go. So.
I like Link to the Past, and I like chaos, so it's great.
Okay, next question then. What game like do you feel is like this is the hot take or the hot mic moment? Okay, what game do you feel is overrated? Like just you don't understand why it's popular. There's no wrong answers here because this is you.
Oh boy. Well, you're gonna hate me if I say what I'm actually thinking.
No, go ahead and say it. I'm not gonna be. This stream's over. I'm not doing it.
I don't get Metal Gear Solid. I don't. Like the whole series. I even have my PS3 is the Metal Gear Solid version of it.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, because I wanted the backwards compatibility, and like W gave us the like $800 of money trying to like stimulate the economy at that time, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna buy this PS3 then.
Thanks, W.
Thanks, W. So I got that, but I just have never ever gotten Metal Gear Solid, and like my best friend loves it. My brother is obsessed. My brother absolutely loves it, and I'm just like,
nothing.
Right? It does nothing for me. I enjoyed watching you play the other day, though. It was fun.
Well, that's good then. Maybe like I said, and I get that too, because like even if I were, me and my friends are talking to people, we're like, would you recommend this game for someone who's never played it before? We're just like, I don't know. Like we love this game so much. I'm like, but I don't know. We'd recommend maybe some other games, but not necessarily that one. So I definitely understand where you're coming from there. But on the flip side, what game do you feel like more people need to play? Like if someone came to you, and they said like I need to I need a game recommendation. You know, what should I play? What are these video games? Where do I start? You know, what is
Oh
something
man.
that you think everybody should kind of just jump into?
Oh man, that's a hard question.
I, I guess these are the harder questions. I thought the academic questions would be the hard ones, but now we're getting into like personal stuff,
No,
and I guess
this
it's a bit
this is
harder.
stuff
So,
that's rough. A game that I think is severely underrated that I wish that more people would play. I'm gonna say Lost Odyssey.
ooh, that's a good one. Speaking of Xbox, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
one. I feel like, oh my god, yeah,
That
that's
game
like
is beautiful.
with the like. Speaking of visual novels, they have all the
Yeah.
little stories in there and stuff. You know, oh,
Yeah,
that's like legit one of my favorite like Xbox games of all time, and like the fact nobody talks about it,
I know.
just kills me. And then when I bring it up, and they go, "Oh, is that from like the Switch? Is that Shulk?" I'm like, "No." and then and then and then I got to turn into like a jerk. I'm like, "Well, no, actually, you
No,
know."
actually.
And then someone's like, "Oh, it's their RPGs are all the same or whatever like that."
Oh
But ooh,
no. Oh no.
that's a good one. And now like it's backwards compatible.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Game Pass. Like there's no excuse.
There's
Like
no excuse to not play it now.
at least try it. I'm like give it a few hours, and if you'll know whether it's for you or not. So oh man, that's amazing. Then so when you play games, are you primarily on console or PC, or does it not matter to you? Do you think this whole console war thing is so silly, or do you think there's merit behind it? You know?
I think the console war thing is completely ridiculous, and it's always been completely ridiculous. Like
Oh yeah,
it's always been that. I mostly play on console. I've been primarily a console gamer for my entire life. I did have a stint in the like late 90s, early 2000s where I got really into finding like fan translations of RPGs. So I got to play
oh
like
nice.
Final Fantasy 5, and I was like, how did I even learn about that? But I did that thing.
Nice.
And then, recently I was playing the Crossbell Trails from Zero, Trails to Azure on my PC that I am actually on now.
Oh, cool.
That
Okay.
I bought from a friend because I have had a Mac since high school.
Oh man.
Yeah. I broke a toe on a Windows machine at one point in high school and never went back. I went to Mac after that, and so this is my first PC that I've had since then. And so basically, like, it's been a Trails machine because I did, during the pandemic, I did Sky first chapter, second chapter, the third, and then the Crossbell games got the Geofront translation. So I was like, I gotta do this on the PC because it's a pain in the butt to do on the Mac.
I like that you call it that machine, because when I finally updated my PC a couple years ago, like I didn't play anything new on it. Like there was a lot out at the time that was like kind of pushing the machine. Like I think it was like when like Far Cry 5 or like Metro was out at the time, and everybody's like, "Oh man, you should do this," and you could you can get like 120 frames or whatever. And like the first thing I did, I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "It's like Quake in 4K." I'm like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "Look at this." I'm like, "Look how sharp this is." And
That's
like it's like
basically the same thing.
I did like all like I told my friend this. I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "So what do you play? Do you do PC?" I'm like, "I played Quake," and I played Counter Strike. And he's like, "What?" He's like, "I don't." And I booted up some emulators. I'm like, "I could play, Model 3 Sega games now, and I don't have to worry about lag. It's amazing,
Anything.
So,
It's amazing. And
right.
my friend who gave me he sold me the PC, but it was very discounted. He's like, "Oh, what are you gonna play?" And then I at that time told him like, "Oh, I'm playing Trails from Zero." And he like, "Chris, you knew what you were doing here. You know who I am. You know what I'm about."
Right.
So I have the capability.
And I remember somebody asked me too, like, why are you playing this on like PS4 when you could just like play on your PC? I'm like, because I've been working all day and I'm tired. I'm like, I don't want to sit anymore. I'm like, my eyes hurt. I want to just sit down comfortably and just like, play something on my TV and veg out and stuff. I'm sorry, I'm just reading comments here. Friend's PC Master Race got into his $3,000 PC. Well, no, that's what I love about the console war stuff. Someone's like, "Well, I just got to do 3080." and like this completely destroys the PS5. I'm like, well, I would hope so. I'm like, you spent.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would hope
Yeah.
it would. I'm like, that's so silly to bring that up. But so that's it just always amazes me looking at console wars stuff and just looking and seeing just all these crazy comments and stuff. I think half of them are just for jokes or whatever. But just like I'm like, this is a grown man, saying this. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Do you on that note, do you feel like, I know, especially now, like the whole difficulty topic, there's a lot of like topics about like a lot of games and fans like are very gatekeepery.
Yeah, they are.
Like you got to play the game a certain way, or you got to do this, or if you play it on a lesser difficulty and stuff. Like, do you feel like it's always been that way, or is it just more intense now?
That's a good question. I mean, there used to be, at least in the 80s, like there were arcade guides of like how to do better at certain games,
Right.
like techniques and that kind of thing. And I mean, the problem back then was obviously that if you were bad at it, you were going to lose money.
Right.
And now I just find that entire thing extremely frustrating. Like if I want to play on easy, I want to play on easy. I just worked 40 hours this week. I don't care. Like,
Exactly. Right.
let me do my thing. So the whole like get good movement is terrible and I hate it. And they should just, I don't know, fall into a pit. It's the nicest thing I could think of. But I mean, yes, there actually was some, because part of the issue that you had in the early 80s is that game developers kept trying to amp up the difficulty because they wanted people to have harder games so that they were making more money off them.
Right.
And so you had these games that were like incredibly difficult, and they would do like focus groups of them, and the people would say, oh my God, like these are impossible. Why do you think that this is a good idea? But then they would keep playing it, and but that was more on the developer side, that they were specifically trying to make it harder to play games. And that's the whole reason that Miss Pac-Man came out, is that it was a mod for the original Pac-Man because they thought that the original Pac-Man was too easy.
Mm-hmm.
So they built out a mod for it that would hook into the original Pac-Man machine, and it became like Miss Pac-Man eventually, because of lawsuits and things like that, because you can't just do that.
Right. What? Come on now, what is this? Mods, what is that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a thing. So it was more on the developer side of the past, but yeah, it's stupid, and people should just let people play whatever they want to play.
Well, the thing is, people don't believe me. Like, not too long ago, I gave it a second chance. Sekiro. I'm like, I'm gonna play through this again, and like, I loved it. Like, I would honestly say that's probably one of my favorite like action games like of all time. But like, when I tell people why do you like it, I'm like, well, difficulty like wasn't a factor in like why I bought it. I'm like, difficulty, like it's there, you learn to overcome it. I'm like, but that's not why I bought this game. That's not why I'm playing this game. And this is, what if it gets too hard? Or I'm like, if it gets too hard and I decide this isn't worth my time, like I drop it. I'm like, I don't have time. I have a big backlog. There's not enough time to get through all this stuff. So I never really quite understood that. But at the same time, like you said, it's pretty humorous, I suppose. So I guess I'm asking all the weird questions now as we're like winding down. Do you feel like between games, like from when you were studying and like even in the 90s till now, like there's a lot of like people really identify like with certain characters in video games, like whether like they think they're cool, or whether they just think they're just badass, or whether they think like, oh my God, so hot, this is why I can't date real people or whatever. Like do you feel that it's always been that way, or again is it amplified now? Because there's so many things that I want to say are products of our time, but at the same time, like when I really think about it, they kind of like seem to start earlier, so like I don't know where that came from.
I mean, in the era that I originally wrote the book and everything, everybody was little blips and pixels. So you had a really hard time making anybody hot. Although they did try with Miss Pac-Man. They really did try and make her sexy for some reason. Yeah, they're like,
what? Wow.
They're like, let's make this femme fatale version of Miss Pac-Man. I'm like, she's a yellow dot.
Yeah, like, you got to really use your imagination there. So you gotta
Yeah, I mean,
that try
it's
really hard.
yikes. So I think that once you started getting better graphics and started getting more artwork along with like the manuals, that was really helpful in terms of connecting with the characters because they had a more defined face, they had a more defined character in general.
Mhm.
But that being said, Pac-Man was really like the first real like story character that like merch was based off of, and people loved Pac-Man. And there's the awful record that I yeah I
You have it. You own it.
no no actually I don't.
Oh,
I do.
okay, okay.
I own a picture disc of Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man's on one side, and there's this like fantastic terrible song that is from the perspective of Miss Pac-Man. She's singing about like how Pac-Man is leaving her to go hang out with the ghost pellets and all this, and it's like this big lamenting ballad about how Pac-Man's like hanging out under the bridge, hanging out with bros, eating pellets, and I'm like, they're making him into a druggie. What's happening? It's
Saturdays is for the boys in Pac-Man's world, I guess. I don't know. That's nuts. The lore is so rich. Oh,
it's so bizarre.
hmm. Um. So I guess like since we're getting to the tail end of this,
Mhm.
how does somebody get into your position now? Like, how do they get your job? Like, I know, is it easier now? Would you say? Is it still difficult to do? Does it depend on where you're at? Like how can somebody do what you're doing right now?
Well, I mean, the video game part of it is just one aspect of my job since I'm also a librarian. But I publish about video games, and I get to talk about video games a lot at conferences and just in general. Like I do what 3 podcasts at this point
Mhm.
that are somewhat related. Well, one's anime, so there's that, but two
Right,
of them
right.
are gaming related. And so I think that there is something to be said about like hobbyist historians. That is there are a lot of people who do really good work
Mhm.
about video game history that have no historian training background. Um, but I will say that at least with my academic training, I look at well, for one, I have the ability to do certain things. Like I can really go into an archive and dig through, and no one's really going to question me.
Mhm.
So that's that. But I have frameworks that I can look at a game, or I can look at an ad, or I can look at someone's written pieces, and I can say, okay, this is where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to say, like, this is my argument about what I'm seeing here.
Mhm.
And that's something that you don't just know, and especially because uh, people are taught history wrong for like ever
There's
until
that.
you
Yeah.
actually get into like grad school for history, and they're like, actually everything you're doing is wrong, and this is not how you should be doing it, so let's do it like this instead. Like, dates don't matter. Nobody cares about dates. Nobody cares
Mhm.
about dates. I couldn't tell you like every single name of everybody that's in the book or that is really important. I can't do
Mhm.
that. um but what is really important about doing gaming history and history in general is the ideas behind it. What are you seeing and how can you interpret that?
Mhm.
And so, I went the route of I got a dang PhD in it. Can't say I recommend that for everybody. It's definitely an undertaking, and it's a lot of literal blood, sweat, and tears, and
Mhm.
eating a lot of croutons and trying to make sure that you just survive. Um, no joke, had a bag of croutons that I would sit and write my dissertation and just eat croutons. So I was
Oh
eating
man.
something.
Oh man.
But that's not for everybody. It's really not.
Mhm.
And I think that um, if you want to go that route, there are some really, really good people in the field right now. There are a lot of fantastic people who are doing work on games and gender. There are a lot of people doing fantastic work on preservation. There are fantastic works about how games change. There are really good people in this field, and even people who are recovering lost games. That there are games that were completely thought that they were just gone off the map.
Oh
No
yeah.
one could find them, and then now they're found. One of my friends, Phil, was able to do that with a sim refinery type game.
Oh sweet.
Very wild. But it's something that you really have to make sure you're dedicating time to it if you want to really take it seriously as like, I'm going to do video game history. It's not something you can just kind of like do on the side. Usually you have to really, really dedicate a lot of time to it. Like, I've been going through the box of magazines that I'm going through for a paper that I'm writing for about a year now. Just taking notes, making flags, taking pictures of what I see, getting very irrationally angry at spreads of Claire Redfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fun racism and sexism in one spread. Lovely.
The Capcom then and the Capcom now, you know. Jeez.
But I mean, that's a pretty decent chunk of my time that I'm just sitting there looking at game magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, not everybody can really do that or wants to do that, honestly. So
yeah,
you got to really care.
I gotcha. You know, and I think that's I'm glad you gave that answer. I think that's a really good answer because I feel like so many people want to do this, but like so many things, and they find out like in order to succeed, what you have to do. It's like, hey, hold on, you know, like, oh, wait, I just want to play video games, man. Like, I don't want to do that. Do you feel that like Twitch and the retro category and people playing these old games has helped to kind of bring new light to these old games as because now we have more YouTube channels talking about rare games. Now we have more people playing through these older games. Do you feel that's helping to bring them to at least to the surface and finding a new audience for them?
I do. I think it's been really helpful, and it's actually been helpful for historians too, because there have been people who bring to light a game, and other historians to say, "Hey, like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about the game." That's happened with me. That like I've seen things that I did not know existed, and then was able to run with it. But I also just really like the fact that there is a focus on what has been in gaming. It's not just what's new, what's fresh, what's the coolest thing that's happening right now.
Right.
But there is a focus on where have we been and what does that mean? And I think that that's a really, really cool thing. And even like you said, Twitch streamers are doing that. They're going and finding these games that are completely bonkers sometimes, but that's part of our history that
right.
many people wouldn't know about.
They exist, and you know they must be acknowledged. I guess so.
Yeah, even if they're terrible, who cares?
Yeah, I've been there before. Yeah, I've been there before. I'm like, you know what? I wish I didn't find this game. I'm like, you know, send it to the abyss. But we're about finished up here.
Wow.
With what? Yeah, it's been an hour. It flew by so fast. It's crazy. I'm so nervous with these since I've started out. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to last 10 minutes, but like it's been an hour here. So, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come on, my, stream. Like I said, I'm not afraid to admit I'm just starting, and I'm not afraid to admit that there are people who have been doing this way longer than I have. So I don't claim to be a professional or perfect at what I do. I just do it because I feel like, the people doing the things like you do don't get the attention they deserve. And like they're really what I consider an essential part of, keeping games current and keeping games in the public consciousness and making them what they are. There's a lot of work that goes in that we just don't see. So I'd rather talk to them. Like I'm not going to like if Todd Howard says like, yeah, I want to talk on your stream. Like I'm not going to tell him no. But like everybody talks about Todd Howard and Gabe Newell and Shinji Mikami and stuff. Like there's so many more people. A game is not a game is like the sum of the whole, not just one person usually. So thank you so much for taking your time to come on here. Is there anything you'd like to say? Like, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience watching now, or is there anything that you'd like us to keep in mind, or is there anything you'd like to promote about yourself?
I mean, I really appreciate people listening to me talk for like an hour. That's been pretty cool. I guess for promotion, as I mentioned, I am on several podcasts. I do one that's on video games, anime, manga. That is seasonal anime checkup OVA. And then I also do one that is Jared and Al Watch, that we go through and watch anime episode by episode and talk about it. I've also been doing one. I'm 33, dude.
He was only half off. He's only half off. So.
Yeah. I've been doing one that is actually really, really fun. That is with a indie game dev, and I saw him in here earlier. But it's gamers, devs, and scholars, and he's actually been able to bring in myself as scholar, and then he's dev, and then we have people who play games, and we just go and talk about a game, and it's really cool. It's like a book club kind of, but
that's awesome
for games.
I feel bad because I'm technically in a book club right now, but I'm doing a terrible job, like neglecting them just because I've been so busy lately. But like it was really cool. It was based on an app they're building, which is designed to help you keep track of your backlog. It's the GG app, and basically they set up a book club. So every month they pick a game based on a theme, and then just talk about it. But just unfortunately, I missed several of the other meetings. So if anybody here is part of that book club, I'm sorry, I guess. But so that's really cool. Well, so what I'm going to do after the show, like for everybody listening, I'm going to promote, like, if you don't mind, the podcast and just everything like that, because there's a lot of cool material that, you've worked on and created. But again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. I feel like we could have easily talked 4 hours, like because there's so much to talk about, but maybe the GG, they're already here. They're gonna come get me. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. As always, I appreciate it. Again, I'm gonna promote everything after the show. If you have any questions for Anne after the show's over, you can just let me know or DM me, and I will send them to her for them to answer, as long as they're like relevant questions and not something stupid, like, is the poop deck what I think it is, or something like that, something silly. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
If you're interested in the book, let me know and I can help you out, because it is a very expensive book. But this is the book.
She was very kind enough to let me give me a route to obtain the book, and I plan to start it this weekend after I finish my other book. So I'm very excited to dig into it as well. And to everyone who showed up tonight, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Again, thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being patient when the stream died halfway through. I guess you just got too real, and Nintendo's Miyamoto said pull the plug or something.
Yep. I like to make enemies. That's what I
do. You made a powerful enemy today. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody. I will see you guys soon. I'll be streaming tomorrow. And that's it. So take care, guys. See you around. Have a good night. Thank you again. And we'll see each other soon. See ya.